So in this unit, what we're going to be talking about are parallel and perpendicular lines. So the first thing we're going to talk about exactly what parallel lines are and special angle relationships that involve parallel lines. So parallel lines are lines that are in the same plane and will never intersect. So the first vocab word right here, parallel lines are lines that lie in the same plane and will never, ever, ever, ever intersect. They will never touch. So if we look at this diagram off to the right, we can say that N is parallel to M. And we notate parallel lines by writing little arrows on them. Symbolically, we show that lines are parallel by saying N is parallel to M. So make sure you write this down on your paper. N is parallel. They look like two parallel lines, kind of like an 11 is to M. So you might see it written like that as well. So in diagrams, they have arrows on them, and then in a sentence or a question, it might be written with two parallel lines. It kind of looks like an 11. A transversal, the second vocab word, is a line that intersects two or more lines in a plane at different points. So for example, in the diagram, our transversal is line R. So you want to make sure you write that down, and I'll highlight it for you. This line right here, line R. It's because it's intersecting those two lines. So we would call that a transversal. Our third vocab word, corresponding angles, are angles in action corners. They lie on the same side of a transversal and in corresponding positions. So what I like to think of corresponding angles, if you look at the top part of your diagram, I'm going to make a box around those first four numbers, and pick any angle. I'm going to pick angle 6. I'm going to circle angle 6. Okay. Well, look at the other four numbers on the bottom. There's four numbers right there. Think about which angle sits in that same corner. Well, 6 is the top left corner. This guy right here. So the corresponding angle with 6 will be angle 1, the other angle that's in that top left corner. So if you want to write an example of corresponding angle would be angle 6 and angle 1. They sit in the same corner. Corresponding kind of sounds like corner. It's one way to remember. Another example, you want to write down like 5 and 3 are corresponding angles because we both sit in that bottom left corner. 7 and 2 are corresponding angles because they both sit in that upper right corner. And 8 and 4 are corresponding angles because they both kind of sit in that bottom right corner. One way to think about it. I'm going to go ahead and erase what I have so we can look at other examples. So you need to pause, write this down again. I'm just going to erase this little diagram. Alternate interior angles are non-adjacent. That just means they don't touch. That's all non-adjacent means is that they don't touch. Non-adjacent interior angles that lie on opposite sides of the transversal. So remember, we said that R, this guy right here, is our transversal. And alternate interior, so think the word interior, means inside. So that means it's in between the two parallel lines. So inside parallel lines is this space right here. That's inside. That's in between the two lines. So go ahead, pick any angle inside. I'm going to pick angle 1. I'm going to circle angle 1. Angle 1's alternate interior angle is on the opposite side of the transversal and diagonal. So here, we start at angle 1 and we go on the opposite side. So I'm going to move my hand to the opposite side right here. It's going to be diagonal, so, and it can't touch. So 2 is on the opposite side of the transversal, but it's touching 1. So the 1's alternate interior angle would be 8. They're both inside, they're in between those two parallel lines, and they're not touching. They're opposite of each other. So an example would be angle 1 and angle 8. When I think about another example is 5 and 2. They're both inside and they're opposite of each other. They're not touching. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase what I have. So you need to write it down. I'm just going to erase the diagram so I can write stuff for the next example. And we have R as our transversal. Highlight that. But alternate exterior angles, kind of the same concept as interior, except they're on the outside of the parallel lines. So outside is kind of this area and that area. That's on the outside. That's the exterior. Okay. So pick any angle that's kind of in that shaded region. I'm going to pick angle 4. Okay. And then alternate exterior angles again are non-adjacent, non-touching, and they lie on opposite sides of the transversal. So if we start at angle 4 and we go on the other side, right here, the one that's on the other side of the transversal not touching is 6. They're kind of diagonal from each other. That's how I like to think of it. So an example of alternate exterior angles is angle 4 and angle 6. One more type of angle that we're going to talk about. Another vocab word. I'm going to erase this. We're going to talk about same side interior. Same side interior angles are exactly how they sound. They're interior, they're inside the lines, and they're on the same side of the transversal. So remember, interior is this area. This part that's in between the lines. So pick any angle that's in between those lines. I'm going to pick angle 5. Okay? And it's same side interior angle is going to be on the same exact side of the transversal, and it's also going to be inside. And the only one that is angle 1. So an example would be angle 5 and angle 1. So make sure I write these examples down. Okay. So those are all the types of angles that we're going to talk about. In this next section, we're going to kind of apply those vocab words. So in this first example, it says, using the diagram below, name each of the following. So really similar to what we just did. So A, it says, list the pairs of corresponding angles. Right? Well, remember, corresponding sit in the same corner. Well, I'm just going to start with angle 1. We have angle 1. Look at the diagram and think about which one in those bottom 4, this part right here, sits in the same corner as angle 1. And that is angle 5. So angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding angles. Keep going around. Take a look at angle 3. Take a look at those bottom 4. Which one sits in the same corner as angle 3? And that is angle 7. They both sit in that same corner. So we would say angle 3 and angle 7. going. Okay. Let's look at our next angle. We have angle 2. And which one's sitting in the same corner as angle 2? And that would be angle 6. They're both sitting in that top right corner. So we say angle 2 and angle 6. And lastly, we take a look at angle 4. One left is angle 8. So angle 4 and angle 8 are corresponding angles. I'm going to go ahead and erase what they have. We need to pause so we can talk about part B. I'm going to erase this part. Okay. In B, we want to list the pairs of alternate interior angles. So remember, interior is in between the two lines. So this area right here, that area in between the two lines. So alternate interior. So they're inside and opposite. So I'll start with, and it doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm going to start with angle 3. Okay, so I'm not going to mind. We're starting with angle 3, and we're trying to find angle 3's alternate interior angle. So you're going to go on the opposite side of the transversal. Remember, the transversal is this line that goes through the 2. So you're going to take your pencil, put it on the opposite side, and go to the one that's not touching. So that would be angle 6. And angle 6. And then go to your other angles, and then it kind of leaves you with the only 2 that are left. 5 is on the inside, and 4 is on the inside. They're alternate interior. They're both inside and opposite. So you would say angle 5 and angle 4. And I'm going to go ahead and erase what I have so you don't get confused with the next part. Take a look at part C. It says list the pairs of alternate exterior angles. So those are the ones that are outside and opposite. And remember, the outside part is the part that's on the outside of the lines. This area is the out. Okay? So pick any angle, doesn't matter. I'm going to start with angle 1. That's on the outside. So you're going to take your pencil, go on the opposite side of the transversal, and go to the one that's not touching 1. And that is angle 8. So 1 and 8 are alternate exteriors. They're outside and opposite. And that just leaves you with 7 and 2 as the other pair of alternate exterior. They are outside and opposite. Okay. I'm going to erase the half. And we'll take a look at C. Okay. So D says list the pairs of same side interior angles. That means they're inside and on the same side of the transversal. So remember, this part right here is the inside in between the two lines. So pick any angle that's inside. I'm going to pick angle 4. It doesn't matter which one you start with. And then same side interior, remember, are on the same side of the transversal and inside. So the one that's on the same side is 4. And then it's inside is angle 6. Okay. And then that leaves you with the other 2. 3 and 5. They're both inside and on the same side. So you say angle 3 and angle 5 are same side interior angles. One more example just to get more practice with this, and then you can move on to practicing. The last example, example 2, identify the name of the relationship between each pair of angles. So if we look at A, we're looking at angle 7 and angle 3. So here's angle 7, I'm going to circle it, and here's angle 3. And I know it's kind of trickier because in other examples, we've just been dealing with 2 parallel lines or 2 lines. Now we're dealing with 3, but the steps are still the same. If it's helpful, take your paper, can't really and cover up. I wonder where I can find their shield thing. There's like this thing. Yeah. You can take your paper. I'm just gonna cover up that bottom part with your like another piece of paper. Just cover it like I did with that shield. And now it's only 2 lines, so it's not as like overwhelming. So that might be more helpful. Take another piece of paper, cover up the bottom part like where this gray shield is, and that might be more helpful. So take a look at where these angles are sitting. Okay. They're not on the opposite sides of the transversal, so that rules out alternate exterior and alternate interior. They're on the same side of the transversal, but they're not both inside. 3 is inside, 7 is outside, so they can't be same side interior. So by this process of elimination, these are going to be corresponding angles. Because they're sitting in the same corner. And if you make a box with the top 2, make a box with the bottom. 3 sitting in that bottom right, and 7 sitting in that bottom right corner. So they would be corresponding. They're sitting in the same corner. They kind of sound the same. Here's what I have. Now we're going to take a look at, use my shield, 8 and 2. So I'm going to circle angle 8 and angle 2. And again, if it helps, take a piece of paper and cover up that bottom half. Now we're just dealing with 2 lines. Okay, so take a look at how they're oriented. They are both outside of the parallel lines. So they're both outside, and they're opposite. So if they're outside and opposite, that would make them alternate. You can abbreviate exterior. They're both outside the parallel lines, and they are opposite of each other, so they're alternate exterior. We look at 3 and 9. 3 and 9. This is tricky because covering up with the paper is going to block all the other angles. But just kind of ignore that middle line. That middle line has nothing to do with where these angles are. We're just focusing on this line right here and this line right here. And then we're focusing on this transversal. So just ignore that middle line. Ignore B. We're just focusing on this side here. That's like not even there. So if you look, where 9 and 3 are, they're both inside your parallel lines, they're in between the lines, and they're opposite of each other. So they're inside and opposite, that would make them alternate interior angles. Again, you can abbreviate, so you don't have to write all those long words out. And the last one, 4 and 9. Go with purple. We're going to go 4. We're going to go 9. Okay, again, ignore that middle line. We're only focusing on this side right here, A. We're only focusing on this side right here, C. And here is our transversal. Okay. Just focus on those green lines we just made and that blue transversal. Ignore that middle line. If we look at 4 and 9, they're both inside those green lines and they're on the same side of the transversal. They're inside and on the same side, so that would make them same side interior. There we go. There's that lesson. If you need to, feel free to watch the video or certain parts